oh, then I need to have these conversations. Okay, yes, but how can I bring them to somebody that maybe has a fear of rejection or maybe shuts down when I say something? And this doesn't always just have to be my intimate relationship. It could be my coworkers, it could be my children, it could be my parents. Welcome to Tune In, Discovering Your Authentic Self. Today's episode is going to be focused on a book that Joe and I read together called It Begins With You by Jillian Turecki. And we set out after the new year to read this book in order to improve our relationship, deepen it, increase intimacy, all the things. And I first want to start and like pat myself on the back for actually finishing the book and not getting derailed. So I have a tendency to be interested in so many things. So I will start something and not finish it and have like 3 or 4 books going at one time. I'm not saying that I didn't read any books during this time, but I definitely made this as my focus, and both of us did that. So there were 9 chapters or 9 truths. And so each week we would take a truth and then we would read it on our own or listen to it and then discuss it, typically on Sundays. One week we didn't, time got away from us, life, travel, whatever it was. And it took us 2 weeks to do that chapter. But other than that, like we focused on it and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then discussed it. And there were some really hard things that came up, but we did it. One thing was when I was married, we did try to do some books together, but our communication patterns and styles was not as evolved, and we could never get past the difficulties and learn how to repair and get to that next thing. So I'm not even sure we ever finished a book, and that was unfortunate. And I'm sure I had something to do with that too. But in this case, we did finish. And so I want to talk about 2 of the chapters that stood out to me the most. And then hopefully we're going to get Joe on here to do a couple of chapters that stood out for him, and then to have like a dialogue back and forth about it, because we definitely learned a lot about ourselves and our relationship. So first chapter was actually Truth 1, and the title is It Begins With You. So I'm going to read some of this so that it can kind of jog my thoughts. So, we cannot heal our love lives without healing the relationship we have with ourselves. Every relationship we have ever had has had one thing in common: us. And that really hit me. It's like if I take all of my relationships in my past and like all the things that went wrong, like I am the common denominator. So, like, what patterns kept coming up that I couldn't evolve from, and that I would get stuck and potentially cause a rift in the relationship, and like owning that part. So that was a tough pill to swallow, but so important. I love how the book just started with that. And then she says it's recognizing that instead of being at the mercy of our childhoods and past relationships, we actually hold the key to the change we wish to see in our relationships. It's realizing that every single heartbreak and disappointment we've ever endured was trying to teach us about our fears, patterns, and beliefs that have been sabotaging our chances of having a fulfilling relationship. By changing ourselves, we have the power to change our relationship. By taking responsibility, we choose ourselves. So I know in the past, and some with this relationship with Joe, when things would happen that would frustrate me, I had a tendency to focus on that other person instead of either what I was contributing to it or what I can do to work on myself. And then if that person doesn't change, or if the relationship doesn't get better, then that's an answer. But I think I a lot of times would focus on the other person's behavior and then get hyper fixated on it, and not like own my part, and then just continue to focus on what they're doing, and then lose myself, essentially, some self-abandonment, some self-sabotage, and things like that. So and then this one would really hit home. It's not that they didn't choose you, it's that you haven't chosen yourself. And it's not just that they're avoidant, your anxiety may play a role too. And that was a huge aha moment, which I already had back in the summer at the break that Joe and I had last summer, is that we pushed each other away. My anxiety was getting more as he was traveling more. I was feeling disconnected. I was feeling not prioritized. And the more I brought it up, which ended up being often, the more that would push him away. So owning that part of it and recognizing, okay, it's going to happen again, because I'm going to continue to be given those lessons in life until I conquer them. And it has happened many times. And actually it's happening like currently right now. So like, what can I do to regulate my anxiety as I notice that he's super busy. It's graduation time, it's playtime for his son, it's baseball season for me, and there's a lot of things going on. So instead of letting my anxiety get the best of me, what can I do to keep my energy in myself and keep myself regulated so that I can show up as my best self, both to him, to my kids, to my job, and all of those things. So that is that first chapter. It talks about different patterns that we have that we develop in relationships. And we need to identify those patterns and make sure that we are doing something, choosing something different each time that that happens. Because if we just do the same thing over and over, those patterns will continue. So that was the first chapter. The next chapter was, this was a big one for me, is you must, I think it's a fifth one. Let me see. Yeah, fifth one. You must speak up and tell the truth. So this was a challenge for me. Many reasons. So I was not used to speaking up, speaking my needs in my past marriage. And then again with Joe. And so when I did speak my needs back in May of last year, it did not end well. So I have this fear of doing it. What I didn't take into account was, how was I showing up to speak my needs? Was I just throwing it out there? Was I just being selfish about it? I need this, I need that. Or, hey, let's talk about this. This is what's bothering me. How can we compromise and make it better? So um, in order to progress a relationship, increase intimacy, increase depth, we had to have these conversations and speak the truth. So it starts with, people avoid the uncomfortable conversations to keep the peace. But peace isn't the goal of a relationship, love is. And when we love someone, we have the hard conversations in service of that love. That was a huge aha moment for me, a huge awakening where I was like, oh, then I need to have these conversations. Okay, yes, but how can I bring them to somebody that maybe has a fear of rejection or maybe shuts down when I say something? And this doesn't always just have to be my intimate relationship. It could be my coworkers, it could be my children, it could be my parents. How can I have these hard conversations that I know are difficult? We just had a hard conversation with my parents about aging and living situation and all the things. And it sucks. Like, nobody wants to have that conversation, especially them. But the reality is we have to, because I know me, and I don't want there to be an emergency that pops up. And then all of a sudden we're forced to make a decision. And that's what happens in the world. We have two choices. We can proactively make good decisions based on our intent, based on our soul and what we want in life, and in alignment, or we can wait for the universe and life to happen that's going to cause us and make us make those decisions. And usually those do not end well. They don't feel calm, they don't feel peaceful, they might not even be in alignment, because now all of a sudden we have to make this emergency situation decision, because this is the situation, and we can't avoid all emergencies, but when we can, why not be proactive about them? And so we had a really good conversation at Easter time with my parents, and I'm learning to have the hard conversations with families that I work with that, they're having marital problems, or they're in a relationship. The mom and dad are in a relationship. The dad had an affair, and the mom had just been separated for a month after a 10-year marriage. And now all of a sudden they have a baby that was born months early. That's a hard conversation to talk about, and to talk about the emotions. It's no longer focusing on the baby and their tummy time and how strong their neck is and whether they can look back and forth, but instead how the emotional impact of the relationship is going to affect the baby, and how we can make that better from here. And then obviously with Joe too, being able to sit and talk with him about things that either have not worked in the past or not working now, and figuring it out. It's not just about throwing our hands up and saying, oh, we just have the same patterns over and over, and oh well. It's like, okay, I'm the type of person that has a growth mindset. I want to get past my patterns. I want to have my soul be filled in this lifetime. And so those lessons are going to continue to happen, whether it's with him, whether it's with somebody else. And until I face those fears, face those insecurities, face those attachment issues, I'm not going to get past it. And I can't look to him to be able to solve those for me. I can only do those for myself. So we have to ask for what we need, speak up when we don't like something, and ask the questions that may scare us. We can be honest with ourselves and our partners in small ways every day. And let's see, we're often held back from being honest on these little things because we worry about the other person's feelings or feeling embarrassed. But when we aren't forthcoming, we can end up resenting the other for not giving us what we really want. And that is the main thing that I have learned is resentment builds in a relationship, and when it starts to build, it just grows like wildfire. It is so hard to undo that resentment, and ultimately that's probably what happened in my marriage is that resentment grew. I couldn't figure out a way to speak my needs and be able to repair, and I don't want that to happen in my future relationships, whether it's with Joe, whether it's with my children, whether it's with my parents, whether it's with friends, coworkers. It's learning how to speak up, doing it in a way that that other person can understand, and you're not going to get it right the first time most likely because you're speaking from your own perspective and the way that you see the world. But true intimacy is understanding also how that other person sees the world and apologizing for the way that you say things. So, just for example, um, last night I was talking to Joe. He's in Miami and he's on his way back home today. And he's like, "Hey, did you want to go for a walk?" And I would want to, but I had already made plans with my neighbor to go for a walk. That's what I do every Wednesday. So there was that frustration, like I want to see him and because I haven't seen him in 3 days, but there was that frustration of like, well, you just asked me, I already have plans and I'm not going to change them type of thing. But so I was like, well, I already have plans with Trish, but that wasn't very warm. That wasn't very kind. So after I hung up the phone, I kind of realized that I said that and like I want him to continue to ask me to do those things. So I apologized. I said, I'm sorry about how I said it. I should have acknowledged that you asked. And I said, I do want you to keep asking me to do those things. So owning it, having the hard conversations, be willing to apologize, be willing to own your shit. So I hope this helps. I highly, highly encourage you to read this book. It doesn't have to be because you're in a relationship or your relationship's not doing well or it is doing well. You learn so much about yourself and how to communicate with others. Stay tuned for the next part. Have a great day.